Welcome back to the Exempt List. Today, we're talking about security guards getting into fights with players on the field, plus some other stuff from Week 13 of NFL action. To join me today, my good friend, Tony Calatayud from the LeBetard Show. We're going to get right into it. Tony, we've done some work together, but I think this is the first time you're over on my side of this on the fence.
I can't wait, dude. The Exempt List has been a great pod that I love listening to. I pulled up to your crib. We've done stuff outside of it. Like we've done a bunch of stuff together, actually.
Yeah. We gotta get the gang back together in New York City one time. But
yes.
For now, we're gonna sit over here through the internet and chat about football for the next hour or so. There was a lot that happened this week. I think a lot of funny stuff that can tie into what has happened this weekend. And as we usually start the podcast with funny things from the weekend, I think one of the funniest things that we heard yesterday, based on a report from the Athletics, Zach Rosenblatt, who does a good job covering the Jets over there, and the Athletics' Diana Rossini, who we know from her long days at ESPN. Apparently, Zach Wilson is reluctant to step back into the starting role with the New York Jets, which is something that I find like hard to believe almost. When he watches what's happened over the past 3 or 4 games since he's been benched, I can understand some salty feelings because it's not like Tim Boyle has been an upgrade over him. And even when Trevor Siemian came in at the end of that Falcons game, it's not like he fared very well. So I can understand why he's a little bit salty about that. But it's not like he's someone who I would say currently has a whole lot of control over their NFL future. So with 4 games left, like, this might be all you got, Zach. I don't know. Like I would be inclined to tell him to play. Rossini even came out and said that Aaron Rodgers has been urging him to, take back the reins and start the lineup. Robert Saleh, in classic Robert Saleh fashion, said that Zach Wilson walked into his office yesterday after the report came out and said that he does want to play. Tony, what are we supposed to make of all this? And should Zach Wilson just kind of suck it up and play?
Yes. The short answer, yes. Right. We've seen a lot of QBs in this league this season make a lot of money for themselves throughout their careers. Right. Josh Dobbs is going to be a backup quarterback for the rest of his life in this league. Right. Like Zach Wilson right now is not playing for a starting job. He's playing to be Chase Daniel. To me, that's the best job in sports. Let me be Chase Daniel. Let me hold the clipboard. I'm going to make $40 million throughout my career. All I got to do is come in and play well once. Right? Like that's all you need from me. You need the Chad Henne 98-yard drive for the Chiefs. Like that's the one thing you need. So when you hear Zach Wilson say, or the report say he doesn't want to come back in, I get it. Being salty, it's like you're playing in the playground. One guy's like, oh, this guy's not that good. Let's put him out. And you're like, all right, you guys figure it out then. I'm not going to do it. Right? Now, Saleh's always been on CYA mode when it comes to his quarterbacks. It's tough to know really what the truth is when you hear Zach Wilson saying, nah, I'm good. But then Saleh's like, nah, buddy came in and said, hey, we're good. I'm going to lead this team. The Jets have been such a disaster. And I know you're in New York, and I know you've got a pulse on the team. It's like, man, with all the moves that were made this year, with so many quarterbacks that look somewhat competent as backups, that the Jets didn't kick the tires on people on the couch, didn't kick the tires on trades, didn't do anything but said, you know what we have here is enough. And that was Tim Boyle, who was the worst statistical quarterback at UConn in the NCAA. Okay. The Trevor Siemian experiment that we've seen in, let me see, New Orleans, Chicago, Denver, probably 9 other places that he stopped at.
I think he had a Philly stop too.
Like, we know he ain't it.
Yeah.
And then Zach Wilson, who at this point is just trying to resurrect some sort of career post-Jets. So if I was Zach Wilson, I'd say, all right, 4 more games, 5 more games, whatever it is. Let's go out. Let me see if I can make some money in the rest of this, because at the end of the day, like I know I'm not a starting quarterback, and I know that other people don't view me as a starting quarterback, but let me at least try and get the Mariota treatment, the Chase Daniel treatment, the insert, backup quarterback, to see if I can at least get that.
See, I'm not sure if he knows that people don't view him as a starting quarterback. Because dude, I had people tweeting at me yesterday, like multiple people, because I was like, yo, like, I understand the frustration, but clock's ticking. You might want to get out there and play and just kind of see what happens. And people were like, oh, well, he could get, the like end up like Jared Goff or something like that. I was like,
Oh, please.
no, he couldn't.
Please. He wishes he could be Jared Goff. He wishes.
He absolutely could not at this point. Maybe he could end up as like Jared Goff's like practice squad buddy, but he's not even he's not even entrenched to be a backup, because like we've seen this for 2 years now and it doesn't look good. And also I think something that could really hurt him as far as, you know, being a backup is we saw with Tim Boyle, it matters more like how people feel about you than actually how you play in terms of being a backup quarterback. And we have 2 seasons now where last year when Zach was asked about his bad play and if he thought something was his fault, he said no. And that was the end of that until his dad texted him and said, like, boy, you're the quarterback. Like, you can't just
you're the leader of this team.
Right. You can't say it's not your fault. It's always your fault, even if it isn't your fault. And it is your fault because you're not playing very well. And now this year to like be reluctant to go back and play, like when you're under contract, that's what can get you in trouble with NFL teams more than like even like serious off-field stuff. Like, I'm a bad teammate guy. I'm not going to play when I want to come in. Dude, you don't have a choice right now. Like you have 4 games left to save whatever's left of your career, and they're giving you a chance to do that. Man, you got to take that. Because obviously we're at the end of the road here with his relationship with the Jets. I don't think you can come back from this. I don't think you should want to come back from this either organizationally or for the player. But for Zach, man, like you kind of just got to swallow your pride and get back in there, because if you want a team to like take you seriously as someone who can play for them next year, it starts today, because you haven't done anything that would suggest that teams should even really trust you as a backup. I mean, 2 years in a row, you got benched for Chris Streveler, who is totally out of the league. And then this year you get benched for Tim Boyle, who should be out of the league, except people just like being around him. So he still has a chance of being in the league. I think it's kind of baffling that he would do that. And I really hope that he does reconsider, because it just seems like some pretty terrible advice to me that he's getting.
Charles, he's not even hurt, right? Like, I don't understand. Hey, it's Trevor Lawrence. My ankle got stepped on 19 different ways. Like, I'm done for the season, but I'm going to try and gut it out. No, I'm completely healthy, right? I've been collecting dust on the pine for the last couple of weeks, but you know what? I don't think I'm going to play. And for the guy who said that he could be Jared Goff, let me tell you, there was at least some sort second year in the league post Jeff Fisher. Goff went 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, seven picks. Like, if we got that from Zach Wilson, it would be a miracle.
Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be on this team if we could do that.
Right, exactly. They would have so much more cap room. They would have so much more just everything, right? If they didn't have to sell their souls to get Aaron Rodgers. Just as a quick side note, I know they opened up the window and there's been reports saying that he's probably not going to play. If he were to come back same season after an Achilles tear, it would be the greatest thing in NFL history, right? Because we were like just amazed by Cam Akers and how he came back in like 8 months or whatever.
6
and
months.
For him to come back in 9 weeks, it would be like the greatest athletic feat of all time.
Yeah, but at the same time, like if okay, well, first of all, I don't know if I believe he's going to do it, but let's say that he does. Bro, you're going to have to come up off of whatever treatment whatever medical miracle you're sitting on. You're gonna have to give that to the rest of us, bro. Like you can't you can't just say, oh well, this is a feat of defeating modern medicine. And now look at me, I am back. No, you have to share that, because
let us know what's going on over there.
Because you know how many people could benefit from, maybe Kirk Cousins could get back in time for a Vikings playoff run, or at least like greatly expedite his recovery process for free agency next year. That's not something you can keep to yourself, Aaron.
And like, the second that they're like, all right, he's going to come back to practice, he's going to come back and play. Hey, yeah, this is the drug testing. Let me get that piss real quick. Let me see what's good. The piss test doesn't lie. The piss
test doesn't lie. What'd you do, Aaron? What did you do? But I guess like what it sounds like is it's prepared. It's just, is it strong enough to play on yet? And if he's figured out how to go, because, dude, we still have not even hit the 3-month mark from when that injury happened, because it was September 11th and today's December 5th. And, Aaron in his press conference, the funny thing about Aaron is like he'll hit every single base that he needs to when he's talking about this stuff, because he had a press conference last week with the with the Jets beat reporters, and he hit every single point where he's like, it'll be a long shot for me to play. I'm not really close to playing. These things are going to take time. And then he also said, I'm going to try to play the week after the Falcons game. I'm like, dude,
that's weak. Like what? Is Aaron Rodgers a better quarterback or a better talker?
At this point, he might be a better talker because I don't know what he looks like, because we haven't even seen him play since last year, really. And the 4 plays I saw him play, he tried to run away from defensive linemen. Two of those wasn't quite there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But also, dude, I saw this past weekend a Jets right tackle with the game on the line just straight up not block anybody and give up a strip sack on Trevor Siemian. So I don't know if this is what you want to risk this for coming back for next year. And Aaron was like, he's like, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, I tear it again. Well, then I just reset the clock with longer to recover. I don't think
that doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I don't think that's how you want to be thinking about this.
No.
Two Achilles tears in 3 months. Like
it's unprecedented, actually. It is completely unprecedented. Not only your recovery, but your re-injury, and then have to recover again. Like, that's insane. All in all, Zach Wilson needs to come back.
Yes, he needs to come back and play.
That's the long story short.
Yes, yeah. Or, they could have done something, but they decided to do nothing, and now this is where you are, Jets. It's just baffling. Like, because I remember just talking to some of the guys on defense this offseason. They were just like, we need a quarterback. I don't care if it's Derek Carr. I don't care if it's Jimmy G. I don't care if it's Aaron Rodgers, but we can't run the same thing back that we did.
And guess what? Now we're waiting for that same thing to come back.
So, look, I have Aaron Rodgers on my dynasty team. I hope he comes back just for the sake of my ability to win a championship next year. But for the Jets now, Zach, you got to play in the game. Okay, another funny thing from the sports weekend that I alluded to in the intro to the show. The Eagles head of security, known as Big Dom, who is like, I feel like we can say this. He's like this, like if I were to drop a stereotype of a mob like hitman, like this is exactly what I would have in mind. Just this big, stocky Italian dude goes by Big Dom, takes himself way too seriously, and during the Eagles 49ers game on Sunday, Dre Greenlaw, the 49ers linebacker, got into, I guess, a little spat with some players. And then the head of security stepped in and Greenlaw basically shoved him, and they both got ejected, Big Dom and Dre Greenlaw. If you're the Eagles, like, I don't give a crap if Big Dom gets ejected from the game. He's not playing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Like, even Nick Sirianni was kind of laughing at himself a little bit. But Dre Greenlaw, like, that's a big loss for the 49ers. I know that it ultimately did not matter, like, in the slightest, because they still won 42-19. But I ask you, should Dre Greenlaw have been ejected from, I guess, his spat with Big Dom, Sirianni's bodyguard?
That's tough, right? Because when you're the head of security, like, your innate thing is, let me secure my guys. And we just saw Devontae Smith get suplexed into the ground. Okay. And it's like right in front of my head of security. And what is he going to do? He's going to naturally just separate these guys. The thing is, when you see red and you're playing football and somebody's in front of you, you kind of lose the sense of, when you're looking at something, you don't really see it until you see it. It feels like Greenlaw was looking at him like, oh, this is another player. Let me put my hand in his face. And he's like, realize, oh, damn, that's somebody who's not playing football. And I just he didn't punch him. Like, let's get that one. Like, it was not a punch. It was like a poke through, like if he was pointing at somebody else, but kind of just rubbed up against his nose. But I think Big Dom sold it well, right? I love the Pimp C glasses that he had on. That's how you know he's Phillied out. Like the Pimp C glasses, dark tint with the gold. Like, I love that. Should he have gotten tossed? I mean, if it was a player and he threw a punch, he would get punch. I have in quotations, but that was, to me, I thought that was the turning point, right? The thing that comes out from nowhere where momentum swings, all of a sudden Big Dom is a cultural hero in Philly, and that game turns around. All of a sudden Philly gets back in the lead. They win somehow because of that play. And then it ended up being the complete opposite. Because at that point is when San Francisco is like, oh, bet, okay, perfect, let's go. And then went on they had already had 2 long drives. They went on an 85, just off the top of my head, I think, 85, 90, 77, 75, all in consecutive drives, all for touchdowns. At what point do you say, oh, it's a fluke? You can't. It's just repeatedly good plays after one another. And it's, again, I thought Dom was the turning point. And then I think right after that, the next drive was the Debo touchdown that there was a blatant hold by Bell. Ronnie Bell just absolutely tackled Reed Blankenship, didn't call it. And then I think that's when everything opened up. But I'd be interested to see like your thoughts on 49ers. The first quarter of the game really had nothing. They had -2 yards, I think, in the first 2 drives. And then all of a sudden just opened up a can of whoop ass and it was over.
It's just like there's such a big discrepancy, I think, for where the Eagles struggle versus where the 49ers excel. Like Reed Blankenship, the linebackers, Nick Morrow, Zach Cunningham, and then when you play against offensive coordinator like Kyle Shanahan, who's trying to open up the middle of the field, you kind of need like an all-star linebacker, and those guys are, backups if we're going to keep it real. And it's not even just like, oh, we're going against Kyle Shanahan. We're going against like Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, guys who are going to like Ayuk, guys who could all just like take the ball and dominate anywhere in the middle of the field. So, I think that's like a real struggle area that the Eagles are going to have to figure out for themselves, because they signed Darius Leonard yesterday, like immediately after the game was over.
They were like, get us the number 1 linebacker we can. Who's there? Shaq Leonard. All right, get him. I don't care.
All right. Yeah, Shaq Leonard, excuse me. Like I really just feel I felt good for the 49ers, honestly, after seeing them win that game. And I'm not even really a fan of them, but the amount of people who have just kind of like pointed fingers and laughed at them for saying the very obvious fact of like, hey, if we could have literally just thrown a pass in that NFC title game. Yeah, just a pass. If we had one healthy arm on our roster that wasn't from Christian McCaffrey, maybe that game would have looked a little different, which is like the most obvious thing that anyone could say about that game. It helps when you're in an NFL game in 2023, if your opponent's team literally, physically cannot throw the football, it's obviously a huge advantage for your team. And I just couldn't understand why people were so, look at you. Like, I get it to a degree, but at the same time, we can be real a little bit. So I was happy they kind of got that off their chest. And now I look at the 3 main contenders in the NFC, to me at least, Philly, Dallas, San Francisco. San Francisco's put 42 on both of them.
I think 84 points combined between Dallas and Philly.
84-29, and these are supposed to be the other contenders. And now it just kind of makes you look back on the slump that they had. It turns out it was just a slump. They lost those 3 games before the bye. They lost to like the Vikings, which seems pretty laughable now when you watch how both these teams are performing over the past 2 weeks. Man, I like the 49ers would probably be the team that I at least want to see in the playoffs right now, because like when they're running together like a well-oiled machine, I don't think that there's any real hope of stopping it, because it's not even just like the skill players and the coach. Like Brock Purdy, I'm pretty good. I don't know if he'd be my MVP.
He's right now odds-on favorite to win the MVP.
I know.
If like right now, this second, he is 3-1 to win the MVP, which came out of nowhere because during the season, like, yeah, he was good, right? Like, it's like, all right, you need him to make plays. He's making plays for you. But now he's actually making throws. Like, there was one cover 0 all-out blitz that he threw the ball to Jennings where he scored that touchdown. And it was a perfect dime where Jennings turned around, stiff arm, and ran into the end zone. But it was like, all right, who's my hot receiver? Boom, I'm going to throw it out where nobody can catch it except him. And he made a play. And it's like, looking at the microcosm of Brock Purdy, it was always, oh, this is a cute story. Oh, he's going to fall back to earth. There's no way that he can just continue to win. And then it's like, wait, why? Like, why is he the reason they're winning now? Right? Like, why is he making the throws that are putting them in position to have all of this success? And when you look at that 3-game losing streak, They lost to the Vikings, which I want to say was a last second game. They lost to the Browns, who at the time were the best defense. I still think one of the best defense in the league, but at that point we're just playing like lights out. And then they lost to, who was their third loss? The Bengals, when the Bengals were rolling, right? Burrow was looking great. Chase was amazing. Like when you look at that in a capsule, now those teams are now gone, right? Vikings, a nice story. Cleveland can't get, the quarterback situation right. Bengals are dust. Even though Jake Browning looked good last night, that's a different story we'll get to in a second.
He did look good last night.
He did look really good last night. But when you have all of those 3 losses and you're like, oh, you can explain away those losses, now all of a sudden it's like, who can't they beat? Because they just beat the 2 best teams in the NFC. I think if they would play any AFC team, they would beat them the same way. Like the thing with the 49ers is that they've always been hurt. All of Shanahan's tenure, they've been hurt. Be it a quarterback, be it a running back, be it a receiver, be it a tight end, be it defensive players, they've always had that injury bug that's followed them. This year, it feels like Thanos has gotten all of the gems, all the stones in his goblet or whatever it's called, and now it's like, here, I'm going to snap, and the NFL is completely dust now because we have everybody and we're healthy at the right time.
It's interesting to see like the debates around Brock Purdy because, like you said, he's going to be in the MVP discussion right now. He's the leader for it. I still kind of struggle with the idea that he's the most valuable player in football for the season. But like when we get to the end of the season, like the stats that he's put up, they're just not going to be comparable, I think, to most other quarterbacks when we get to the end of it. So is Brock Purdy the MVP of the league right now?
I say no. And I'm just looking at his stats right now. 70% completion percentage. Again, a lot of layup, like slam dunk throws that he's throwing. 3,100 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 picks. So if we round it out to the end of the season, figure he goes for 3,700 yards, 3,800 yards, somewhere in that neighborhood, 30 touchdowns, 9 picks. Is that an MVP season?
Maybe this year. I think a lot of it has to do with like the field and what's happening with his competition, because like I think Mahomes has still largely been great this year, but it's
a LeBron effect, right, Charles? Where it's like we can't give the MVP every year to Patrick Mahomes. We just can't do it.
Right. Josh Allen's team has probably lost too many games.
Mm-hmm.
Herbert hasn't. Like the Chargers are, whatever. I don't think Herbert's played his best football, especially last week. And they've probably lost too many games. Joe Burrow's out for the season.
Can I interest you in a Dak? Dak for MVP?
That's if I had to pick a quarterback.
Are you intrigued?
If I had to pick a quarterback, I would go with Dak. When I just look at like the difficulty of throws that he's making sometimes, like the Seahawks game, him and Geno both blacked out in that game. But some of the throws that Dak was fitting the tight windows downfield, like throwing back shoulders in the middle of the field, I was pretty in awe. And like he's kind of reached a point where like he's played so much football, like he's just so in control of what's going on that I'm starting to expect that from Dak like most weeks now. And I think obviously when you pair like with the development of CeeDee Lamb, who's become more than just a slot guy, like he can kind of kill you from everywhere now. I think he's going to have like the stats to put it up. But no one's really going to have the quite just like raw efficiency numbers of Brock Purdy, which is it's just baffling to think that we could be looking at 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, close to 10 yards an attempt from the last pick in the drafts. But like historically, those are numbers that kind of get you the MVP. Like if we're going to go back to like what Matt Ryan did with Kyle Shanahan in 2016 and the Falcons, the numbers kind of resembled this. Maybe they threw the ball just a smidge more than what Brock Purdy's doing, but like these are typically MVP caliber numbers. So I don't know. I just struggle with the idea that he's the most valuable player in football.
Is it the storyline though? Is it Mr. Irrelevant? Is it last pick in the draft? Is it 3 quarterbacks had to get hurt? The quarterback that they wanted, that they traded up for to go get, is now no longer on the roster because of this guy. It feels like Kurt Warner mixed with Tom Brady, mixed with whatever other underdog QB story. getting thrusted into the limelight with a team that is ready to win the Super Bowl for the last 3 years, and all of a sudden now he's making them look like the number one contender in every single sense of the word.
Well, yeah, I think that's it, because the thing how many Kurt Warners and Tom Brady's are there? Two. those two guys. So like this is such a rare phenomenon that someone with his pedigree and taking where he was could come in and just absolutely dominate, like in a way that I find it difficult to even comprehend that we've ended up in this space where Brock Purdy is playing like one of the best quarterbacks in football. And I say this as someone who's been a skeptic for most of it, but I just find it harder for myself every week when I'm watching him make these throws and I'm watching him run the offense and I'm watching them put up all these points. I mean, dude, like 2 weeks ago when they got off the bye and they beat Jacksonville and Tampa Bay back to back, he posted basically a perfect passer rating for 2 straight games.
Yeah.
Which is
and it was easy.
It was
and
so
you know how
easy.
sometimes it's like a hard for a quarterback. You watch him like, all right, he gutted it out. Like it was a tough game. It was like everything is easy. The throws are effortless. The scoring is effortless. Again, 10 yards a chunk every play. It's like, I get it. Their playmakers are so good, but he's the one that's kind of unlocking all of them to play their best. On top of that, the run game is just allowing him to play action pass all day. And there's nothing you can do, because if you run to the left side of that line behind Trent Williams, you're getting 7 yards a clip.
Yeah. And see, that's why people will say, well, why should he be MVP? Because he's in the easiest situation in football.
True.
Which is also,
we know the
also
MVP is
fair.
Tyreek Hill. We know the MVP is Tyreek Hill.
Same. That's where I am. I would give it to Tyreek Hill today, because I think in a year, like if we're going to debate, Brock Purdy or Dak Prescott or I'm not in on the Jalen Hurts MVP. I think he's wasted too many first half this year for him to be.
He has not played as good as he should have this year for the contract, for the team that they have, everything. I've said it on our Sunday night show with me and Juju Gotti. Philly is only, obviously, this is an obvious take, but it's more nuanced and I'll get to it. Philly is only going to go as far as Jalen Hurts is going to let them go, because their team is set up for success now. Jalen Hurts got the big contract, has not lived up to what it is that he signed. You can see all the counting stats. Yeah, he's got 10 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, but when you look at it through your eyes, through the game, he's missing throws. He's holding the ball way too long. He seems to have this affinity for the rollout. He rolls that 15 times a game. Again, I don't know if that's game plan or if he's getting nervous in the pocket and wanting to get out and try to make something happen, but it seems like he's rolling out and there's nobody there. I counted 5 times where he just rolled out and threw it out of bounds. Again, Chase Young on one side, Nick Bosa on the other side, Eric Armstead, like a legitimate D-line. But like you got to make something happen in the pocket.
Yeah, you do. And I would just say with the Jalen Hurts stuff, yeah, it's cool that they've been able to come back a bunch this year and win some of those games from behind. Like even Jason Kelsey said last week, like, wow, I'm kind of surprised we keep winning these games because, keep putting ourselves in a position where we're not supposed to win these games.
They were 5-0. Like losing at halftime, being down at halftime, they were 5-0.
Right.
Except from yesterday.
It's baffling. And I would say that quarterback has a big reason as to why they're always losing at halftime, because he gets off to such a slow start and then, you get dragged back into the game and then fourth quarter comes and, makes enough plays to kind of put you over the top. So I would give it to Tyreek Hill this year. If I had to pick, dude, he's on pace for like the best wide receivers.
132 catches, 2,100 yards, and 17 or 18 touchdowns. Like the best statistical year for a wide receiver.
Yeah. Outside of like maybe the year Jerry Rice caught 22, but even then he didn't get over 2,000 yards.
Right.
So,
and Randy, the year in 07 with Brady had 23 touchdowns, but I want to say he was close, but not that close. But anytime I look at Jerry Rice's stats, I'll go to his Pro Football Reference. It's insane. Not to get off on a tangent, Jerry had 1,000 yards at 41 years old.
Like
what?
It's very fun to like just bully old people and say, oh, Antonio Brown's better than Jerry Rice, or just some crazy like that. But come on, I have no sensibility, even though I'll never admit it to anyone who's like 15 years older than me, that Jerry Rice is absolutely the GOAT for wide receivers.
In 2002, Jerry was 40 years old. He played all 16 games, had 92 catches, 1,200 yards, and 7 touchdowns. At 40. At 40. We're thinking, oh, you know what? Quarterbacks can maybe play until they're 40. Brady did it. Aaron's trying to do it. A speed possession. I need to be better than the guy in front of me right now, this instant, and Jerry Rice to be 40 years old and still whooping people's ass 18 years younger is incredible. I love Jerry. I just love looking at his stats. That's it.
Is there any chance that like another non-quarterback wins MVP? Like, does Christian McCaffrey have a case? If we're going to talk about 49ers offense, I think he does.
I think he's got 1,400 yards total this year between receiving and running. He's got 17 touchdowns. Like, if he finishes with maybe 1,500 yards on the ground and maybe 700 something on through the air, if he finishes with 20 some odd hundred all-purpose yards and 20 some odd touchdowns, like that's an incredible year. But we've seen Eckler have years like that, right? And he hasn't been close to any MVP conversation. It just feels like if you're going to give it to a non-quarterback, this year would be the year to do it because the quarterback class is okay, not great. There hasn't been one person as far as a quarterback who's stood out this season that in seasons past you'd be like, okay, I'm for sure giving it to Mahomes or I'm going to give it to Josh Allen or whomever. But I think for me, like if Tyreek, and it's the body of work, right? He said at the beginning of the year, I'm going to get 2,000 yards. And now he's going out and standing on business and going to get 2,000 yards. Like that to me is calling your shot and then walking the walk. I personally, not Miami bias, but I personally would give it to Tyreek Hill just because if you take Tyreek out of the equation in Miami, what is Tua? What are the Dolphins if Tyreek's not there?
So I think he's the single biggest non-quarterback, the transformational piece in the offense can have. I mean, dude, even like the play to me that sticks out was the long touchdown he had last week against the Commanders where like he had to turn around and find the ball in the air.
Was insane.
Yeah, insane adjustment. And he went on Twitter and said that Tua threw him open and whatever. I don't even care about like who's right and who's wrong in that. I just think the idea that you are talented enough to be running 50 yards down the field one way, and then turn around without breaking a stride, find the ball, catch it, and still score like a 70-yard touchdown. You are like the most valuable asset that team can have. Like it feels like Madden. Like you're trying to find, all right, where's my field stretcher? Who's the guy that I can go to for 4 catches for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns? They have that. And it's not only that, but he can do all the other like nuanced receiver stuff, run after the catch that people like. My God, he's
Welker came
amazing.
out. You heard what Welker said, right? Where he's like, I would have, him over Randy as far as like running routes and stuff.
Yeah, he said Randy was a great talent, but Tyreek can run the whole route tree or something like that.
I feel like Randy can run the whole route tree too. I'm just saying.
Yeah, definitely can.
I feel like Randy's pretty good.
Randy can do it all too.
I'm pretty sure he could do it all. Obviously, the 9-yard go. And my buddy Lewis was here. He's like, you don't call it getting Tyreeked. You call it getting mossed. And there's a reason for that. Okay? Randy Moss has a verb named after him. There's only a couple guys that have the verb. Kobe and Moss. That's it. But when you talk about Tyreek, the early day of Mike McDaniel, where they were like, look, anything to get this guy. Because McDaniel saw what everybody else saw, which is, yeah, Andy Reid can use him in a certain way, but if I plug him into a San Francisco East kind of offense where the middle of the field just seems to be wide open all the time, and that's all they seem to be doing, he can just outrun people. I was at the Vegas game where he caught the ball on like a deep post. There was 3 guys around him. He had the ankle and just beat him to the end zone. Like you saw it develop because I was on the end zone side, far side, where I saw him like, oh, he's going to get tackled by a safety. And then it's like, oh no, 30 yards later, he's in the end zone dancing. And all the safeties are like, there's nothing I can do. He ran 25 miles an hour. I can't get to that speed.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, like I had the angle, sure, but all of a sudden he's gone. He's vapor. And I think his speed eventually will not be there. Clearly, like if we're just banking on Father Time, his electricity and his speed will not be there. But like his ability right now, I'm just trying to think like outside of the prototypical AJ Browns, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase build wide receivers, like Tyreek is not supposed to be a 2,000-yard guy. It's just he has the intangible that nobody else has, which is I'm going to catch the ball, I'm going to beat you to the spot, and I'm going to dance around, and you just can't catch me.
Okay, the Tyreek, like how his game is going to age, because I've been thinking about this with Tyreek and how long this goes. Like, how much speed would he have to lose for his speed to no longer be an asset? Because you could chunk some layers off of how fast he's moving now, and it would still be like, okay, we still need
like
the
faster
safety
than
of
everybody else.
Right. Like, could he play till he's 40 and still be one of the faster players on the field?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so
like,
too. When you look at, again, Jerry was a different receiver, and as guys that are younger than old heads that have seen Jerry play, we only caught a bit of Jerry, right? We caught the last 4 or 5, maybe 6 years of Jerry if you were watching early. But when you look at what Tyreek can do, it's like, what's the equivalent to what we've seen in the past? Like, who's the guy that we can point back to and be like, oh, Tyreek can age like that? And there's nobody.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I can think back and think of like who that person would be.
I don't know. Like, obviously the impact is not the same, but the only person I can think of who played wide receiver and was still fast as when they were late 30s, like Joey Galloway. He was still moving towards the end of his career, but he was never Tyreek Hill, you know?
No. Like Torrey Smith, somebody had like good straight line speed who can get behind defenses. But again, he wasn't, I'm going to catch the ball in the middle field, juke out 9 guys and then score. And I'm going to make it look easy. Like, he's just such a different type of player that it's hard to project when he loses some of that juice, how he's going to look. But like, what's crazy to me also is the Dolphins have built, it's like a Madden team. Like what we would do in Madden's like, let me get everybody that has juice and put them under one offense, and let me see what that looks like. Waddle, juice. Achane, juice. Mostert, juice. Tyreek, juice. Like, just everybody's juiced up.
Yeah. Dude, even Barrios, like the backup guys can run. Barrios runs a 4.3.
Cedric Wilson's nice, dude. Like, he was nice with Dallas.
Cedric Wilson's like the 5th guy. Too.
Yeah. Dude, he's the 5th guy buried on the depth chart. And I remember him having some games in Dallas. He had like 10 for 110 on a Thanksgiving night. Like, Cedric Wilson's nice. And the Dolphins have just amassed like this really good talent core that obviously the cheap quarterback helps to make sure everybody fits under the cap. But like, the Dolphins are really interesting. And obviously I'm based in Miami, so I don't want to have this bias of, Dolphins all the way, because I think they have their limitations. But like what McDaniels has built is really nice.
All right, let's move on from the Dolphins and Tyreek Hill, who we both agree would be our pick for MVP this year. But there's one more MVP candidate that people have been talking about. CJ Stroud, Houston Texans. Look, I didn't see myself having these conversations at all coming into the season, but at 7-5, put up another good game yesterday. He had 274 yards, 10 yards an attempt, a touchdown. His QBR wasn't great at 17.1, but I think when you just watch him play and see some of the plays he can make, he is clearly one of the top quarterbacks in football, like without a doubt. Does he have a stake to claim with the MVP discussion?
I think that it's part of he's lost too many games, and I think this is an ascending team. I really like the Texans, and last year we were looking at the Texans being like, okay, what's happening here? Because this division, this team looks not good. They get CJ Stroud. Like, I don't know about you, when he was coming out, I like CJ Stroud at Ohio State. I never thought that he would be this, right? Between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, I was more of a Stroud guy than a Young guy. I could never get past the fact that, yes, he won the Heisman Trophy. Yes, he had a great, career at Alabama, but the eye test told me there's something about Bryce Young that I don't like, right? I don't know if it's his stature. I don't know if it's just the way that he plays. There's something about CJ Stroud that looks like an NFL quarterback, right? And again, am I doing the stature thing? Am I being, an elitist when it comes to stature? Possibly, right? But now he came out and backed it up with a team that we didn't think was going to be that good. Like, what'd you rate the Texans this year? When you looked across their weapons, their defense, this was a team that might go 4-13.
Yeah, I was like, 6-11 would be a pretty solid season from them.
And all of a sudden, CJ Stroud's 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And the crazy thing about it is that he's getting better every week. Like, there's things that I notice in his game every week where he's throwing against the blitz, he's throwing against man coverage, against zone. Like, he can do it all. And I don't know how. I really don't. But when you look at his weapons, Nico Collins, I think is a good piece that he's elevating. Tank Dell, I loved coming out of Houston. Like, I thought he was a really good player. But guys like Noah Brown, like Dalton Schultz, like, he doesn't really have an all-star crew around him, but he's leading them. And that's the thing. We talk about the Brock Purdys, we talk about the Hurts, we talk about the Allens. It's like, what are you doing when your team is okay? How are you going to elevate them? Right? Like, he's in a position where the team isn't great, but he's making them good. Like, when you watch CJ Stroud week in and week out, what's your first thought? Your first thought on him?
Dude, he's so decisive. Like, I feel like with rookie quarterbacks, a lot of time, and rightfully so, like, you're sitting back there and you're just like, I don't know where I want to put this ball. I don't know. I'm scared. I'm confused. The defense is
there's a rush.
Right. All of a sudden,
is that Nick Bosa? Oh,
the fastest, biggest, strongest guy that's ever run at me in my life is 2 feet away from me, and I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. But with CJ, he's just so calm. And I feel like what kind of sets him apart, not even just from rookies, but from a lot of other quarterbacks too, is just when the play starts, he feels very confident in where it's supposed to go, and even more confident in his ability to fit the ball in there. And more times than often, he's been right this year. I mean, even though he had that one game where he threw 3 interceptions, he's still only at 5 for the whole season.
And it was early too. It was against Arizona. He threw 3 picks.
Yeah, I think that was like right after Kyler came back. So it's been a little bit since that game. So, dude, I really can't believe what we're seeing with him, just in terms of, understanding of the offense, being decisive with the football, and also just being like otherworldly accurate with some of these throws, especially like deep down the field. To me, like, honestly, the difficulty of what he's doing right now makes me think he should be in the MVP discussion, because it's not, like you said, it's not like he's going out there with like the Brock Purdy supporting cast. Mm-hmm. There's some guys that have some talent.
How would he look in San Francisco? How would he look in San Francisco? Let's just think about that for a second. How would CJ Stroud look in San Francisco?
Dude, I think Brandon Ayuk could hit 2,000 yards with CJ Stroud.
Everybody 2,000 yards. Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, you throw for 6,000 yards between 3 receivers.
Dude, I mean, he had almost 500-yard passing against the Bucs this year. So
he had 470 and 5 touchdowns, 0 picks. As a rookie, 470 and 5. Like, what?
It makes no sense. It really makes no sense. And it's the idea that we could be talking about a rookie quarterback, is he in the MVP discussions, is like out of this world. Like, it's unquestionably the best rookie quarterback season that I've ever seen. And I just feel like it's been in such a way where as soon as this thing started this season, it says, okay, I know the Texans found their guy, because it's just it's so pronounced. It's so dominant, right? It's so obvious that they have their guy. So I am just blown away by what he's done. And the fact that he was able to just kind of pick up an NFL offense and start playing in it like he's been in it for 10 years or whatever, blows my mind, because the Ohio State offense is not what you see on Sundays. And especially in terms of like the collection of talent that you're going to play, with too, because it's not like he was throwing the bums in college. Olave, Garrett Wilson,
Jackson Smith and Jigba,
Marvin Harrison Jr., like
a legit 4 receivers deep.
Yeah, that's a top 10 pick in Garrett Wilson, Olave, who was picked 12th, Jackson Smith and Jigba was picked in the 20s, and Marvin Harrison Jr. might be like the 2nd or 3rd pick in the upcoming draft, and probably considered the best player. So, like, I think it's interesting from a draft ethos standpoint too, because I can see where you can get skeptical is say, dude, like he's throwing to 4 top 20 picks at wide receiver and like the best wide receiver prospect we've seen since like AJ Green and Julio Jones. But I think with how college football is trending right now, you almost have to wait and see like if you can just get a game where Ohio State has to play someone of comparable talent. And in this situation, it was the Georgia game, right? Where you go back, Marvin gets hurt, and nothing changes from their offensive output against the best defense in the country. And like, if you go back and watch that game, it's not like Jalen Carter was like held at bay. Dude, he was absolutely cracking heads on the Ohio State offensive line. People. And C.J. Stroud just step out the way, throw a dime down the field to somebody else, even though Marvin was hurt. Like, maybe we need to just wait and see if you can just find a game against comparable talent, because I agree. It can be kind of hard to evaluate guys when, you know, you're going out and throwing 4 first-round receivers out against guys who are probably just using this to get a free education more so than
it's the Bryce Young thing, right? Where like, yeah, he's throwing it to guys that are just, it's Alabama. Like every position is going to be hooked up. And now he gets in the NFL. And again, Panthers not a great situation. Their ownership, very meddlesome. Frank Reich thought he was going to have more of a leash, didn't. Like there might be something there with Bryce Young, but you have to go and find it. With CJ Stroud, you don't got to find it. Like it found you. Like, wait a second. Ooh, second game, 384 yards and 2 touchdowns. Second game in the NFL. And you're already playing like legit football. Like his off script stuff is really good too. Like you said, the play breaks down. Read one is not there. Perfect. Let me roll out. Let me find somebody else. Here's Tank Dell 45 yards down the field with a flick of the wrist. It's there. And it's like, wow, that's something you see from a guy in his 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th year in the league, where now we're seeing it year 1. And now it ruins it for all other rookie QBs who are, hey, why aren't you CJ Stroud?
Yeah. Oh, man. If only I wish the Falcons had a quarterback like CJ Stroud.
Like I doesn't.
I know. Frustrating. That's what he is.
Well, hey, you're leading the division, dude. Like, what else do you want? You want a home game in the playoffs? You're getting it.
I would prefer not to have to face Dallas or Philly. In that,
oh my God, can you imagine? Can you imagine Dallas coming into town and just putting 60 on the Falcons?
Yeah, like what do I need that for? And like, yeah, it would be cool to have for the first playoff game, because first playoff game in what since
the Super Bowl year?
No, the year after the Super Bowl. Remember they played the Eagles the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Yes. And they were the only team that kind of put Nick Foles' offense at bay, and they should have won that game. But Keanu Neal knee balls a pass back to Torrey Smith. Yes. Yeah.
The rest is history.
Rest is history. Yeah. So I would like to see them play in the playoffs again, but I don't feel the need to get demolished by Dallas in the first round and end up with like the 20th pick in the draft.
Yeah, which you accomplish absolutely nothing.
Yeah, doesn't move me. Like the only thing that we get done is like extensions for Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot. Right. Which
we're not sure if we want just yet.
Yeah, not just yet. But we could talk about a coach who is having an upstart year in year 1, and just ask a quick question before we move on to some AFC playoff picture stuff. Should Shane Steichen, the Colts head coach, be coach of the year in his first year with Indianapolis?
Dude, he's really good. And when you look at the lack of success, but when you look at what's happening with the Eagles, you're like, ooh, how much was Shane Steichen? Right? Like how much was happening there where the Eagles look like dominant on offense, where now this year it's like, ooh, there's something that's not firing the way that it was last year. And can you imagine this team if they had a healthy Anthony Richardson? I love Richardson, by the way. Like he is a specimen. But when you look at what Shane Steichen's doing, and then you kind of look at the mismatch pieces that they have, like Michael Pittman's good, not great. Jonathan Taylor, very good running back, but how much are you really going to put on him? Right? You look across the board, their weapons are a C at best. I feel like that's being generous, right? And their defense is okay, but again, division's not great, but he's continuing to find ways to win. I like Gardner Minshew. I think he's a really good backup. Again, Zach Wilson, learn from Gardner Minshew. You're going to bounce around. You're maybe, getting called up when somebody has a career, or not a career ending, but a season-ending injury. Like, get ready, get yourself ready. But I have a hard time not giving coach of the year to McDaniel. Like, just for what the Dolphins have been. Like, I think it's a race between McDaniel and Dan Campbell. because there's no way the Lions should be this good right now. And he's turned the culture around. Like, Goff is playing well. Amon-Ra was a steal. I like what they're trying to do on defense. They probably need to get a little bit better on the back end, but like, I think it's a two-man race between McDaniel and between Dan Campbell.
With Dan, because I feel like the way that people vote on this award is like, oh, well, this is like just a correction for how we thought you were going to perform this year. Like, I think about even last year with Brian Dable, like, yeah, we thought the Giants were going to suck, and then they made the playoffs.
Interesting.
Right? And now they and now they suck again. Yeah, almost like that.
Like, oh, okay, we were right on that one.
So with Steichen, I was just like, man, once Anthony Richardson got hurt, I was just like, okay, I know Gardner Minshew's like, as far as backup quarterbacks go, he's probably near the top of the line in terms of guys that you would want. But 7-5 with the 7 seed and the tiebreaker over the Texans as things stands right now, that's crazy. Like, especially because you're playing with house money, right? Because it's not like you're one of these teams that is, you're not good, but you seem to be on a good run, and then you end up kind of playing yourself out of the quarterback market for next year. You already have your guy.
And I think we've seen him. And he's proven, right? Like, outside of the injury stuff, like, he's proven that he can run this offense and be dynamic in this offense.
Yeah. So I don't know if he's going to win it. I think McDaniel's a good one for sure, just because the Dolphins are like totally breaking how you play offense and how you make big plays. And if they finish with a number 1 seed, he's probably going to get it. But Steichen, I think he deserves some love for Coach of the Year. And I think I would give it to him right now, just because, like, dude, you're dragging an offense that is missing Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor for most of the season to like league average. And Michael Pittman's having a career year without his starting quarterback. Josh Downs having a good year. See what happened with
Downs
the Eagles.
Downs is good. I like Downs.
Yeah. See what happened with the Eagles with, since they've subbed in Brian Johnson as their play caller. Hasn't quite looked the same, even though they have, the Avengers out there.
Just a click off.
Just a click off.
It feels like they're just a click off. It's like, oh, yes, I know this team. No, wait, there's something that I don't like. It's just not there. And I think it's Steichen, man.
Before we get out of here, rapid fire, AFC playoff picture. Chiefs and Jags. Who do you trust more to get the number 1 seed? They're both sitting at 8-4. The Kansas City Chiefs are in the 3rd spot after their loss to Green Bay. Who they lose to? After they lost to Green Bay.
Jordan Love looking decent too.
Yeah,
that's another exempt list that we'll do.
Yeah, I had a brain fart moment there for a second. And then Jacksonville, who was down to 8-4 after their loss to Jake Browning, who lit them the fuck up, bro.
Who, if you squint, kind of looks like Joe Burrow a little bit. If you squint,
look, you just flip the number upside down.
Exactly. Flip the number upside down. 6 turned to a 9 now. When I look at Chiefs and Jags, just body of work tells me Chiefs are gonna be there at the end. Jags just got dealt two tough cards on Monday night. Christian Kirk, who's been, I think, their best receiver this year, first play goes down with the groin injury, hobbles off, looks not good. We'll see how long and what the severity is on the groin. And then everybody saw that ankle twist get stepped on. Trevor Lawrence's ankle got blown up. Who took a long ass walk to the locker room, by the way. No cart in Jacksonville, just like long ass walk, 2 trainers. Let's see if we can walk this off. I'm worried CJ Beathard, okay, backup, sure. Like, get you out of a pinch like we saw. Come in and play competent in that last little 2-minute drive that they had there to kick the field goal to send it to overtime. But I'm trusting Mahomes. Like, I'm trusting Mahomes. I'm trusting Andy Reid. I'm trusting Travis Kelce. Even though they don't look like they've looked in years past, I like Rashee Rice. I think he could be a really good player in this league. They need him to take, that next step. But when I look across the weapons, I'm probably going to lean Kansas City just because of coach and quarterback.
All right. I'm with you. And we'll see how long Trevor Lawrence is out. They look like a pretty painful injury, but at least they're just saying it's an ankle sprain for now. So I think based on how that looked in real time, that's not a bad outcome for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars.
For what actually looked like it happened.
Yeah. And last one, talk about the number 1 seed in the AFC. Who is scarier, the Dolphins or the Ravens, once you start getting to the playoff picture? That's a tough one.
The beautiful thing is, I think in about 3 weeks, we're going to be able, or 3 or 4 weeks, I'm trying to think of when that game is. Miami versus Baltimore. I think second to last game of the season. They play each other.
On New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve. What a game. Right now, man, I love what Miami's been doing. The problem is when Miami faces a team that is a real legit contender, they seem to not have the juice that they have against bad teams, right? They're great at taking out the trash against the Commanders, against the Jets, against, name whatever garbage team that they're playing. But when you've seen them play the Bills, get blown out. When you saw them play the Chiefs, their offense got snuffed. You saw them play Philly, and Philly just said, all right, we're going to play big boy football, and you're not going to be able to do the things that you do against our defensive line. Hassan Reddick had 15 sacks. I think he's still getting sacks from the Dolphins. Game counted towards him. And then now you're going to see him play Dallas, and you're going to see him play Baltimore. Those two are the tests for me right now. If it were me, I think right now I trust Baltimore more because their defense, when they've played teams that are good, they've absolutely waxed the Lions' ass. I'm going to look really quick the Ravens' schedule because I'm trying to see beating the Bengals without Joe Burrow. They beat the Texans game 1. Like, they haven't really played anybody. Right? Like, they've been feasting on bad teams.
They did beat the shit out of the Lions, though.
Beat the shit out of the Lions. That's the one. There's 2 wins that stand out is Lions and Seahawks. Right now, I'm taking Baltimore. I know people in Miami are going to be mad, but until Miami wins a game against a legitimate contender, which should be coming against Dallas and against Baltimore, I'm going to take Baltimore.
Yeah, I know they've had some lapses on defense, but I think that's still a defense I'll probably trust the most in football right now, just in terms of the talent, the coaching. Like Mike McDonald is definitely going to be someone's head coach next season. Roquan Smith's been a godsend. Kyle Hamilton has developed into like a pterodactyl of defensive destruction.
How is he 6'4" in the backfield in the secondary? Like how,
dude?
And he's just making plays.
6'4", 220, running with slot receivers, blitzing, playing man coverage, playing the post as a free safety. Like it makes absolutely no sense. And that's just like the Ravens draft strategy. I feel like in the first round, just like don't overthink it. We saw this guy be good for 4 years. Because I remember even like there were some analytics folks that were like, oh man, like you picked a center and a safety in the first round because they picked Tyler Linderbaum that year in the first round too. Like that's such a bad use of resources. And now Kyle Hamilton's like the best safety in the league. Tyler Linderbaum's a top 5 center. It's like, sometimes you just don't overthink it. Just keep it moving.
We kind of know what we're doing here in Baltimore, huh? What do you think? We got Jack, we got Lamar, we got a couple guys. Like we're good. Zay Flowers, all juice team. Like we're good.
They've missed on like the only thing they've really missed on, I would say, is like a couple wide receiver picks. With Hollywood, Rashad Bateman's been a little shaky because he's been injured so much, but looks like you got it right with Zay Flowers at least. He's amazing. He's amazing. But Tony, appreciate your time. Plug your work. Let people know what you got going on before we let you out of here.
Dude, yes. First off, thanks for having me. We got to do this again. I got to pull up to the crib up in Brooklyn again. But check me and Juju Gotti out Sunday Night Live. It's the world. I don't know if you know this or not. The world's biggest NFL postgame show is Sunday Night Live with me and Juju Gotti. That's every Sunday night around 7:30, 7:35. We're casually late to our own party. That's on the LeBetard Show YouTube channel every Sunday night. Also check out the LeBetard Show. We do a lot of cool stuff throughout the week. One of the biggest podcasts in America if you watch on Apple, if Spotify's kind of playing us, but that's not the point. The point is go check us out there. Go check us out on Sunday night. We have fun there. And follow me at 10-Day Tony, at 10-Day Tony. And that's because I can give you work. I got a 10-day contract coming up in the books for the Heat, so I can give you the work on the basketball court too. And I've been playing football.
Oh, really?
Me and my boys have been getting back out there. Brother, I'm looking like Travis Kelce out there. It's crazy. Crazy.
I'm scared. I'm scared to get back out there. Like I just casually toss a football around with
the old pigskin barbecue. Yeah. Got the beer in your hand. Throw it soft so I can catch it with my beer still in my hand.
Well, because I played in college, so we were out there like earlier this year. Some of my friends, we had like a little picnic. We're throwing the football around, and someone was like, "I don't know, we should actually play." I was like, "Okay." So I played defensive line, but I was a pretty good athlete for a defensive lineman. So I was out there at receiver, and I gave it like one full go, like on a route.
Like, ooh, that's why I don't do it anymore.
Right, and I dusted them. Called the pass. As soon as I called the pass in the end zone, my back just like gave out. I was like, oh, you know what? That's why I don't do this anymore, because
now we talk about football.
Yeah. Now we talk about football instead of playing it. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on. As always, send us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/0blitz. Ask a question, send your hottest take. We'll read them on the show. We'll be back with another episode of the Exempt List next Tuesday, just like every Tuesday. Tune in tomorrow for an episode of Inside Coverage with Jason Fitz, Charles Robinson, Jory Epstein. I am for Verts. As Tony said, he is 10-Day Tony. Producer Stone Rochelle. He is on Twitter at SJ Rochelle. And we will see you next week.